I during the 60s, is Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who's still in business out in Iowa, incidentally, recruited the Beatles too, and they became transcendental meditators. How many of you are transcendental meditators? If I asked that question in the 60s, it's fully half of the audience would have said yes. And but anyway, I decided to trade common sense for peace of mind, and I myself went to Maharishi Yogi and gave him $80 and a clean handkerchief and an apple, which was his price for turning people on to transcendental meditation. I will teach you how to do it tonight at no cost whatsoever. And it works. I do not mock it. It's a wonderful way to take a nap in a hurry and at any time. Isn't that pretty good to be able to take a nap whenever you want? Maharishi Mahesh Yogi gave me a mantra, which was my personal mantra from him. And he made me promise not to tell anybody what it was. It was sacred. It was Aim. And I've asked a lot of other meditators or ex-meditators, and it turned out that about a quarter of the people have Aim for their mantra. And it's a Sanskrit word, apparently. Are there any Sanskrit scholars here? It might mean $80, it might mean clean handkerchief, it might mean apple, I don't know. But Maharishi told me, and I tell you, that everybody can do this. It's true. There's nobody is resistant to this, so I give you the secret. Maharishi told me to take my mantra, and I tell you to take it. And you start externally, Aim, 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 and you let it go down in your throat slowly until it's just a little buzz in your throat. Your pulse will slow down, your respiration will slow down, your troubles will drop away, and your eyelids will get heavy, and you will go under. First time you do it for 2 or 3 minutes, and then you'll bob to the surface again. Now you must sit in a stiff chair, not on a couch, not on a bed, but just a kitchen chair. There's no torture instrument. And so I did this, and it was all he promised, except I suddenly realized that I had been doing this virtually all my life since I was 7 years old. Sitting in a stiff chair, holding a book and reading. And my pulse slowed, my respiration slowed, and my troubles dropped away. The ringing telephone didn't bother me, traffic noises didn't bother me, and I was refreshed. And then I realized that the book, the physical book, this device, was at the core of our civilization, that we were already meditators, those of us who could read, just as we were Western-style meditators. So I don't want that lost. I think it is a secret of our civilization. We didn't realize how well this device worked to allow us to meditate. And meditating the Maharishi way, I've likened it to scuba diving in lukewarm bouillon. And but you go down and nothing happens. You don't see anything. If a purple scarf floats by very slowly, that's big news down there. There's nothing else going on under there. Whereas if we meditate Western style, it won't work with a cathode ray tube. You have to be sitting upright, and you have to hold this thing in your hand. Plenty happens. We meditate not only with minds other than ours, but minds surely that have seen things we never saw, or thought things that we never saw, and more often than not, minds better than ours. So I don't want that lost. Perhaps in the future religious goods stores will still be selling books for people to meditate Western style. I am a Luddite. I think the only reason money is being poured into computers, one, they can sell them to people, but another is to knock everybody down to minimum wage, no matter how well educated they are, or eliminate their jobs entirely. And I hate this thing that IBM has challenged a human being to play chess. What is this? Enthusiasm on the part of technocrats to make human beings useless, is no longer respectable. And so, the internet is people are saying it's a great blow for democracy and all that, and people will be able to communicate. Well, you've heard the story, a mathematician, this was proposed years ago, a mathematician said that 1,000 chimpanzees seated 1,000 typewriters for 1,000 years would eventually create the works of William Shakespeare. Well, the internet has proved this is not true. And when I lecture, I tell people, please, it's crazy to imagine that you belong to something as big as the United States. It's like belonging to Asia. You belong to a neighborhood. But that's the best you can do as a human being, and this whole idea of being American, it's a marketing device. It's a huge market. And you know, Time magazine will say, what are Americans thinking today? You know, Newsweek, what's on Americans' minds now? And what do Americans think of this or that? And I expect to see people retreat from computers and from TV and start doing art themselves again and relating to each other. What they're doing now is selling virtual life to us, and I think we're going to get sick of it and start getting into situations where we're dealing with real people again. And as a futurist, a futurologist or whatever it is, people expect me to say what the next 1,000 years is going to be like, so they know what stocks to buy. And I say, buy cathartics, companies that make cathartics, laxatives. Because peristalsis alone cannot move the waste material through our intestines. If nature expected us to move around some, to get up and go get a book or whatever, instead of sitting all day long and twiddling keys. And so, also, I would sell your stock in deodorants. Because it's going to be a very popular smell again. Is, my God, what is that? It's another human being. Because all these devices are separating us. And I say, we're dancing animals. I showed you what a beautiful dance it is that anybody does, going to a bookshelf and pulling off a book. But another thing we do, another dance, is, are we going to touch or not? Is when you meet somebody. And there's that tension. And and the computer, the internet is going to eliminate all these contacts, all these opportunities to do human dances. Why human beings are supposed to be put completely out of work, I don't know. There's one line in my last book, my great book, it used to be that when a man suffered a reverse of some kind at work, it was said that he had been handed his head on a platter. Well, now people are getting their heads handed to them with tweezers. I'm talking about microchips, which can do what human beings were once valuable for. So I really don't like the trend at all. I do not like Bill Gates. I like me. But I would welcome any questions from you about this being my last book. It took me 10 years to figure out what this book should be. And my situation is rather unusual. I am completely in print. And so I realized that what the last book should be would simply be the final chapter in one big, long book. So that's what it is. So you have to buy all the others too. Are there questions? Yes. Well, human beings are very resourceful animals, and I travel all over the country to lecture, usually in college towns. And people are being satisfied with limited successes. They're publishing locally for a small audience. They're putting on plays. University of Maine, for God's sake, was a perfectly ordinary state university. I was up there. They were producing plays, not for Broadway, not for off-Broadway, but for the University of Maine. And this thing would run 2 or 3 nights. And it would be about their own concerns, and that was enough. And people are, again, in order to participate in the arts, to continue to participate in the arts, been content to succeed locally, have local experience. Robert Whitey here made the movie of my mother, made the movie of my masterpiece, Mother Night. And it was a swell movie, but it couldn't be for a large audience. And but okay, it exists anyway, and there's going to be more and more of that as local success. When I grew up in Indianapolis, it was a city-state with artists of its own. Because I knew sculptors, I knew painters. People had their paintings painted locally on their walls. There's Will Forsythe, Wayman Adams, I met them, artists. There's Mr. Petrie, who owned the Petrie Music Company, with soul pianos and sheet music and all that, wrote a concerto. It was performed by the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra. It's good orchestra. And I took lessons, clarinet lessons, from the first clarinet, Ernst Michaelis, of the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra, and Ferdinand Schaefer, the director of the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra, used to have dinner over at our house frequently. You know, all the arts were there, and people were practicing them. And people are going to shrink again and not try to become part of the United States to have a coast-to-coast success. But be content with small local successes, because you don't want to be diddled out of the arts entirely. You don't want to be diddled out of an audience entirely. Yes? Oh, I think we never thought we were such hot stuff in the first place, you know? As chess players or anything else. We did want to make a living, you know, and have a family and raise kids and eat. And we never thought we were so wonderful, and to pit a computer against a human being playing chess, it's the most tasteless, brutal demonstration. What are we to think of it? Okay, we can't even play chess. Yeah.
Can you tell us a story about how you came up with the idea for Iceland? Cat's Cradle.
Oh, well, yeah, another masterpiece of mine is called Cat's Cradle. And it has in it ice, a form of ice, a crystalline form of water, which is stable at room temperature. So if this stuff ever gets loose, all the water on the earth freezes, even though it may be 78 degrees outside. Like most of my ideas, this was stolen. Long before I went to work for General Electric, H.G. Wells, the great science fiction writer, was coming to visit Schenectady to see the great General Electric research laboratory, which was really worth the trip. General Electric had one man who had won the Nobel Prize. At that time, the only scientist in private industry who had won a Nobel Prize. He was Irving Langmuir. I knew him. My brother Bernard worked with him. He was a surface chemist. And so Langmuir was a shy man, but the executives were all panicked because they didn't know who the hell was going to speak to this great man from the outside world. And so they told Langmuir, you've got to entertain Mr. Wells. And so Langmuir said, well, what can I do? I'll make up a story for him. That maybe he can use it. So it was about a form of ice, stable at room temperature. This must have happened about 1932. I went to work for General Electric in 1951. It's considerably later. But I heard this story. And part of the research laboratory legend. And H.G. Wells was dead, and then Irving Langmuir died. So I said, finders keepers. Yes. Yes. To heaven. Actually, no. Let me tell you about heaven. As I am honorary president of the American Humanist Association, which has its headquarters in Amherst, New York. And I am a third-generation agnostic. If my parents had been Catholic, you'd have a Roman Catholic speaking to you, because my parents were decent, interesting people, although they were agnostic. And we believe in behaving well, regardless of any promise of punishment or reward in the afterlife. You can still behave well without that motivation. And also, we've said that we will serve the highest abstraction of which we have any understanding, which is our community. God has not made himself known to us anyway. When I spoke at a memorial service for Isaac Asimov, who was my predecessor as honorary president of the Humanist Association, and was a crowd about this size. And at one point, I said, Isaac is in heaven now. It was the funniest thing I could have said to a bunch of humanists. And it rolled him in the eyes. Yeah. How to get started now? Doing what? Writing? Well, I don't mean this coarsely or anything, because it's with all possible friendliness, I tell you to write anyway. That is the basic reward. It's the actual writing and seeing how well you do it. Is when I speak at universities, the worry of students is, what about de facto censorship? You know, Time Warner really going to pay me to do this, or is Disney going to pay me to do this? To hell with them, do it anyway, and do it locally, and people should do art in order to make their souls grow. If to hell with you, if you make any money out of it or not, but please do paint or dance or write. And maybe something good will happen and maybe it won't, but you will already, to use a technical term, have gotten your rocks off. And I've talked to painters. What is the high point for them? It's when they're actually laying on paint. And all the rest is nonsense. You know, the wine and cheese and what the critics say. Sculptors are happy when they finally see a piece given a home where they know it's going to live for a while. Architects have a feeling of completion, nirvana, when they've made a model and when they've made an elevation of the building. And then the nightmare begins, you know, like, my God, we really got to build this and everything, and it's all very unpleasant. And a writer gets the high point for a writer is it's done. Thank God it's done. It's a long ordeal. As anybody who's finished a book is a colleague of mine and fully deserving of respect. But that's it. And you've already been paid. And what I tell college audiences to do is tonight go home and write a poem. A good one. 8-line poem. Get it as good as you can. Don't show it to anybody. Tear it up and throw it in the wastebasket. And you'll find out that you already got your reward. And that is the payoff. The art is participating, and again, painting, dancing, writing. It makes your soul grow. So you should do it, whether Disney will pay you to do it or not. Yeah.
I work for my university's newspaper, and I was wondering what you thought, what role the media plays in this sort of technology takeover.
Well, people, I think, will retreat more and more and more. I read in the paper today that the audience for Monday Night Football has fallen off 20% in the past year. And I think that there are other signs of fading interest in TV. People are getting sick of it. But I was out in California, and I asked one audience in Berkeley, and of course this would be a very special audience, is how many of them didn't have a TV set. About a third of the audience. And there will be more and more people living without this thing, and particularly if they have children. They may decide to live without this thing because I don't think it's good for people. Yes. Well, I'll write short stuff from now on. But my God, I'm 75. And, you know, if you think I'm a mess, you ought to see what Mozart looks like now. Yeah.
What do you have for breakfast?
I have raisin bran with 2% milk. And, of course, cigars are also made out of raisin bran. They will not hurt you, and you can actually eat a cigar. Yes. Well, when I was at the Writers' Workshop, founded by Paul Engel, poet and a great teacher out there. And there was a time when that and Stanford were the only two writing programs in the country. And a lot of good writers came out of there. Paul Engel said if the Writers' Workshop ever got a building of its own, over the entrance would be the words, "Don't take it all so seriously." It is play. Yeah.
Besides all of yours, of course, what is your favorite book?
Candide by Voltaire. But I'll tell you, there are no more books need be written. There are so many wonderful books already. And I'm reading one now. The collected essays of Howard Zinn from Boston University, which are stocked by Borders but not by Barnes and Noble. Yeah, I've read another wonderful. When I was teaching at Iowa, I was there 65 and 66. John Irving was one of my students. Scale Cotton was another. John Casey was another. He won a National Book Award. Rick Boyer was another. He won several Edgars. But anyway, I had my students go to the public library in Iowa City, not the university library, and take out novels which nobody had taken out for 20 or 30 years. You know, you can tell by the date stamps. And they found really swell books nobody knew about. And my generation, I call us the class of 1922. I was born in 1922. Mailer was born in 23, and Harold Shaw was born in 1919, I guess, all clustered around the year 1922. We were all inspired by a book we said the great American novel has already been written. And now you never hear about it, except in crossword puzzles, which is USA by John Dos Passos. But that's so influenced us. As Sinclair Lewis was such an enormous influence on me, and you hear nothing more about him now. My God, read that, please.
Yeah, did you go through any sort of postpartum after finally finishing?
I guess everybody does. Yeah, it was rather freaky. I think the real postpartum, the women experienced, what is it, 22 days afterwards, something like that. And writers experience the same thing 22 days afterwards. No, I haven't killed myself. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't give it up for anything because I can get away saying anything because I'm a veteran, combat veteran. I saw the enemy. So is Rush Limbaugh a draft dodger? And I can just blow him away. And there's only one rank higher in the United States than veteran, and that's mother. No, but I love being a veteran because no matter where I am, I can speak to other soldiers, former enemies, I don't care, Japanese, Germans, ex-soldiers. We're all comrades. We've all been misused by our country in the same way and know what that's like. Well, I guess I sort of threw it out too early here.
Who's your favorite up-and-coming author?
Well, it's not like medicine where you have to keep up with what's going on in your field. I say, without meaning to criticize younger people at all, is their books read as though they were the first step toward a movie. It's almost a motion picture treatment, and that makes sense. That makes sense. The novel is not a two-step deal, and I don't fault anybody for writing that sort of book. The book fails if it isn't also made into a movie. Yes. Well, don't talk about rope in the how's that saying going? Talk about rope in the house of the hangman. I'm sorry to see it go. These people were very unselfish. They really love books, and I'm sure the people at Borders do too. But there's practically no profit in it. You know? There's no way to make money at all. I knew Steve Ross, who was the man who essentially formed Time Warner, took over Warner and then fused it with Time to form Time Warner. And he was talking about, you know, is the amount of money to be made with recordings unbelievable. But he also had captured a lot of publishing. And he couldn't imagine why anybody was in this business. The markup was so low, the profit margin was so low. Yeah.
You said earlier that you felt there was use of higher complete sense for. I was wondering if you had what you would suggest to people my age. I mean, if we were called comics or say felt it was unjust.
I think my war was a just one and had to be fought, but nothing since. And during the Vietnam War, because I helped people keep out, and I have 4 grown sons as prime B for football players and stuff like that, college educated. They all found ways to stay out, and I certainly didn't want them to go. And others disgrace. This McNamara, if he isn't insane, I don't know who is. If that isn't a definition of insanity, it's somebody who would allow so many people to be sent to their deaths for nothing. But I, yes, do resist. And do retreat from technologies you don't like too, in order to get a life, is to remain dancing and moving around and touching people. Well, I guess I've had my postpartum. Yeah. Dorothy playing the Ernest Hemingway part. And Marcia Mason was the faithful wife, you know, waiting. He comes home and throws all the men out of the palace and accuses his wife of terrible things, as the story goes. Anyway, it's a wonderful play, and we would have run forever if there hadn't been a strike off Broadway, which closed Happy Birthday Wanda too. Anyway, we were already paid more than the actors were striking for, but all the theaters closed. Theater owners closed in sympathy with each other. The strike was over, and that finally put us out of business. We couldn't hold the cast together.
You actually have books coming in stock. It hasn't come yet, but check that with us.
How'd it go? Yeah.
What do you plan on doing
For the millennium? Well, I'm glad you brought that up. It's over. The best information we have now is that Jesus was born 5 years before himself, which is another miracle, in 5 BC, which means that the year of the Christian era, the 2000th year of the Christian era, was 1995. And the apocalypse that year was the O.J. Simpson trial. But there are all these dumb people sitting around waiting for 2000 to find out what the future's going to be. It's here. We're 5 years into the next 1,000 years. Yeah.
A number of
Well, I don't mean to discourage an audience this young, but I think it is almost over. We have so mistreated again, I was at a symposium with Isaac Asimov maybe 15 years ago, and somebody in the audience asked him, he's a biochemist, a really good one, he was Dr. Asimov. He was asked how much longer we had to go. And he said, topsoil, atmosphere, water. And he came up with numbers, and it's really very discouraging. We cannot abuse the planet as we are. And as I've said in Timequake, people don't give a damn if it goes on or not. Because most people find life so difficult. You know, they're too funny looking, or they're not sexy, or they can't dance, or they can't make money, or they can't tell jokes, or whatever. Because most people, I think, would just as soon have an end. They find it so uncomfortable. And Dr. Strangelove, I think the end, what people really loved was the end of that. How many of you have seen Dr. Strangelove?
Yeah.
Well, it ends with a doomsday device going on in the Soviet Union. A huge explosion. And you see these white clouds coming up. It looks like whipped cream on top of a sundae or something like that. And the Glenn Miller Orchestra playing We'll Meet Again. Don't know where, don't know when. And I think the feeling of the audience was that, yeah, that'd be all right. But I think we have every reason to loathe ourselves as animals. You know, after so many atrocities, after the Holocaust, and after the atom bombing, and we're really awful animals. But I'm hanging in there for the sake of my grandchildren. My vested interest.
Mr. Vonnegut? Yeah. How would you compare being a playwright with something like Wanted June, or seeing your stuff in film, actually seeing human beings saying your words, as compared to just writing and having human beings read your words?
Well, it's a bonus. It's very nice. It's fun to work with actors. It's enormously flattering. At the same time, you feel guilty, you know, that poor person is saying that because I made him or her maybe a clunky line. No, but I'm not on extended family. And when you get involved in a movie or a play, you get an extended family, you know. As a writer, you're treated very respectfully. You can smoke backstage, which is important to me. All right, you're a nice audience. Thank you. I've got relatives here somewhere. Where are they?
Right here.
We'd like to thank you all for coming, and also thank Kurt Vonnegut. Thanks for being so patient today.